Two brothers arrested after a sting operation by an Athens County task force back in September.
It was meant to catch whoever stole about $100,000 from an elderly man. But months later, the case has now been dropped with little explanation. Now, the family of those men contacted 10 Investigates reporter Rochelle Aline looking for answers.
Well, tonight in a story you'll only see on 10, she reveals what she found and why those men are now being detained by ICE.
Julio Belandria says on September 24th, he called police after he couldn't get a hold of his dad. Speaking through an attorney and translator, he tells 10 Investigates he eventually found out his father was in jail with his uncle, and both were facing felony charges.
I know my father is not the type of person to commit any crime, especially with my uncle by his side, who has Down syndrome, so I was in shock.
According to Athens County court records, his father, Victor Alejandro Laverde Laguna, and his uncle, Gregory Javier Laverde Laguna, were both charged with attempted theft from a person in a protected class. And Victor also faced a second charge of theft from a person in a protected class. According to a Facebook post from the Athens County Sheriff's Office announcing their arrest, someone stole at least $100,000 from a 71-year-old man. And in an effort to catch whoever did it, that post says an Athens County task force planned a sting operation. They gave the victim some fake money and put it in a package. And it went on to say that they monitored communications to help set up a planned money exchange with the suspects.
But this had nothing to do with my clients, Victor and Gregory.
Attorney Vicente Rivera is representing those brothers. He tells me Victor had a part-time job working to pick up and drop off packages for a company he found on Facebook, and he would bring his brother, Gregory Javier, along to ride with him. On the day of that task force operation, Vicente says Victor was sent to pick up a package by that company. He says the brothers had no idea about that money exchange or the fact that someone had been stealing from that victim.
Let's say you're doing Uber Eats and the food is, let's say, tainted, poisoned, or just bad food. Are you liable for anything that happens when you deliver that food? You're not. You're just a courier. And that's the situation. They were innocent. They had no idea who these folks were. They were hired on an app.
The pair were arrested and booked into a local jail.
What they described to me was that day they went, his brother Victor stayed in the vehicle. He went up to the door, showed the code to what seemed like an older gentleman. The older gentleman handed the package. The older gentleman turned around, closed the door, and all hell broke loose.
But nearly 2 months later, the Athens County Prosecutor's Office moved to dismiss their charges with prejudice, meaning they wouldn't be able to charge them again. I contacted the prosecutor's office here in Athens County to ask them why they went through with this case, but they told me they couldn't talk to me about this case because they had referred it to the FBI. Any idea, reaction, understanding as to why, again, a case like this would ever be turned over to the FBI? They wouldn't explain to me any further than just saying it has been.
Unless there's suspicion that they were from another state, they had crossed state lines and done this. But we have not seen a single document or anything that would indicate that the FBI was involved, other than the Athens County Sheriff saying that.
The Athens Police Department also participated in that sting, so I asked their chief, Nick Magruder, the same question. Do you know why the FBI is taking that over? That's a question I just haven't been able to get answered.
Based on my previous knowledge of these kind of cases, that certain agencies only get to a certain point where the FBI has a lot more resources and a lot more access to a lot of data that can kind of make this go a little bit quicker, or trying to find that information. I think I can't say exactly why it was turned over to them, but that's my guess.
According to their family, Victor and Gregory Javier came to America from Venezuela last year seeking asylum. They say as part of the process, they were released on their own recognizance with the understanding that they'd have to follow the law while their asylum case was being worked out. But attorneys for the family say during the course of their now dismissed case, someone called ICE to report that they'd been charged with a crime. I didn't know if the calling of ICE was a legal obligation, or if it's just something that they choose to do. They don't have to do that.
My understanding is they choose to do it. There is nothing that says they have to.
The family's immigration attorney says they're currently being held at a facility in Youngstown.
By all accounts, from my understanding, they followed the rules for seeking asylum. Why would they be detained by ICE then?
The moment that they faced charges, their order of recognizance, their right to continue their proceedings while they are free was also revoked.
Even though they've been dismissed?
Correct.
She tells 10 Investigates she's now working to get their asylum case approved, and she's pushing for them to both be released from a detention facility in the meantime.
It has been appalling with respect to how Javier has been treated, because having Javier in jail is the equivalent of having a child of 5 years old in jail with individuals that might not have the best intentions, that are rightfully being detained, that are dangerous individuals.
And though the criminal case has been dropped, the attorney for that case says his work still isn't done.
Like, where does this leave things for your end of things?
I believe we are probably going to be filing some civil rights action, a 1983 action for the actions of the Athens County Sheriff.
And those brothers were recently denied bond by an immigration judge. Their next hearing is set for March. In the meantime, we are pushing the Athens County Sheriff's Office and the FBI for more information on this case. In the studio, Rochelle Aline, 10 TV News.
All right, thank you, Rochelle.